All right, race fans. Obviously, I'm not at a racetrack, which is where you normally see me. But earlier this year, I met a gentleman by the name of Jan Baker at a NPK race in South Georgia Motorsports Park, and we struck up a conversation. Those of you that know me, I can talk to just about anybody, but Jan's kind of the same way. We struck up a conversation, and he started telling me about some of the stuff he's done and races, everything from hot rodding and custom cars to drag racing and circle track racing, and I just thought, man, I would love to be able to get some of this stuff on camera, just so a little bit of the younger generation can hear about what the guys that came before us went through to make horsepower and go down a track. And I asked Jan, he agreed, and I went down and interviewed him, and it's hours. It's probably 3 to 4 hours of footage. I'm going to break it up into parts. So enjoy, and Jan, I'll let you take it from here. All right, race fans, I have driven to Glenville, Georgia. It's about 6 hours from Chattanooga to meet Jan Baker. Some of you out there are going to know who he is. I met him at a race at South Georgia Motorsports Park, and he is one of the most interesting guys I have met in a long time. And he's been around the drag racing world and the hot rod world for how long, Jan?
50 years.
About 50 years. How about that? So he's been around hot rodding as long as I've been alive. And I just wanted to get some of his stories on camera, and I'm sure some of you out there are going to find it interesting. Some of you might not. You don't have to watch. That's okay with the both of us. How about that?
That's a good deal.
So,
America.
Amen. Amen. So, Jan, tell us a little bit about just how you got into racing to begin with.
Well, I have to blame that on my uncle. Daddy came from a large family. There were 13 children in it, and one of the brothers was Herbert Baker, and he had a drag car and a round track car through the years, and he introduced me to the sport, and it just kind of stuck. It's been hard to get it out of my blood ever since.
That I can understand. I'm the same way.
Yep.
So for 50 years, you've messed around with street rods, probably hot rods on the street, round track cars, drag cars.
I've never owned a drag car. I'm 66 now, and I owned a round track car from the time I was 18 until I was 58.
Wow.
At 58, we wrecked it in Cordele bad enough. I came home and got the torch and cut it up in little pieces. And I said, that's it. I'm through with it. And after that, I started a project building a GT40 kit car, and I'm almost through with it. It's been a project. And I work at a tool and die shop in Glenville. That takes up most of my time, but got a couple of friends around that have had drag cars, and I enjoy going to the strip with them occasionally, and that's how I met. That's how I met you. And
well, I appreciate it. I'm thankful for the time that you've taken out of your day to talk with me. And so speaking of GT40s and that kind of thing, I think I see a little bit of something over here. You want to tell us about that?
I'll try, sir. It started out life originally as a replica of a 66 GT40, and I wanted a replica of a Mark IV. This is a Mark I, and I had built an engine that I wanted to put in one of these cars, and I did not know how to build a chassis with four-wheel independent suspension. There's plenty of books and videos and information you can gather off the internet concerning the front end of a vehicle, but I couldn't find anything concerning how the rear end's supposed to be set up.
Right.
So I started calling chassis manufacturers, and the first one I called told me if I wanted to know how the rear end was put together, buy one, and I thanked him for his time. And the second one was a little more polite. He said it's proprietary information, and we really don't give that information out. I said okay. The third one I called was a gentleman named Charlie Strickland in Fort Worth, Texas, and I told Charlie what I was doing, and I said I'm willing to pay for the information. I realized nobody gave it to you, and you weren't born knowing it. You had to acquire it somehow. And we talked a little. Charlie said, okay, I've never had anybody offer to pay me for information before, but yeah, you tell me what you want and I'll try to make you happy. So,
All right.
so I told him what I wanted. We agreed on a price and he emailed me the information. And I ordered up some material. And a couple of weeks later, Charlie called me and he said, have you started on your chassis yet? I said, no, nothing but some drawings. And he said, well, if you could buy a chassis that was 80% complete for a decent price, would you do that? I said, oh yeah, sure. He said, well, I've started a Lamborghini for a guy and I'm about 80% completed with it, and he's changed his mind. He wants a different body on the chassis, so for what you're doing it wouldn't matter.
Right.
But for me to build my kit to the quality that I'm accustomed to building it, I would have to cut part of it out and put something back. He said, I'd rather not do that on a new car. So long story short, if you want it for a reduced price, I'll sell it to you. So we agreed on a price there, and he sold it to me. And when I got it home, I started measuring and looking and figuring, and to get this thing to work like I wanted to, I had to lengthen the chassis about a foot to put this homemade V12 in it.
A homemade V12.
A homemade V12, yes sir.
With 3 4-barrel carburetors.
Yes sir.
I love it.
Like it sits on pump gas, it made 872 horsepower.
Wow.
And it turned a little over 8,000 RPMs. It's been dynoed about 8 times, 9 times. And other than a few water leaks in it, it's just been a lot of fun.
It looks like it. And not like anything I've ever seen.
It's different. It's the only one I know of that's iron, with Cleveland heads on it. There's a guy on the internet that's built another one out of a 302, out of 2 302s, but he put Windsor heads on it, and it's iron. There's 2 or 3 on the internet that are LS's, but they're all aluminum.
Right.
There's a guy from Australia that is currently casting their own block and heads, and it's LS based. But none of the information I've seen shows it making any more power than this one makes. This one makes 1.58 horsepower per cubic inch on pump gas, and this is over 40-year-old technology. The newest thing on this engine, other than the ignition system, is over 40 years old. The cylinder heads are off of a 72 Torino.
Wow.
The block is out of a 70 pickup truck, or 2 blocks are out of a 70 pickup truck.
Now, how long did it take you to do this?
3 years.
3 years.
From the day I saw the block in 2 till I fired it up, sitting on the floor right there, was 3 years. 3 years and a couple of weeks.
Not many people commit 3 years to something that's never been done before.
Well, it took that long to afford it.
Well, yeah, that's I totally understand.
Yeah. We'll see if it'll crank up if you want to.
I'd love that.
It's not too bad now. I got mufflers on it, so.
It doesn't sound like anything I've heard before.
It's different.
I love it.
I'll give it that. It's different. But it took about 3 years to build the engine, and the 4th of July was 3 years since we got the chassis home. After I got the chassis home and started working on it, got the engine fitted to it and the transaxle fitted to it, Charlie called me back and asked me if I'd found a body yet, and I told him no, I hadn't really looked for one. I was planning on just build the whole thing, you know, build a buck out of some wood and
Right.
fiberglass it and pull the mold off of it and that sort of thing. And he said, well, through a turn of events, there is a kit car company out here in Texas that's gone out of business and changed hands, and through several different movements, I've wound up with a GT40 Mark I body. And if you're interested in it, I'll sell it to you. So I bought the body from him as well. And to get it on this chassis, we had to lengthen it 4 inches here to get it to fit the wheelbase. Then I had to lengthen it 8 inches here to get it to cover the transaxle. And then we had to widen it, what was it, 5.5 inches on each side to get it to fit over the tread width. So,
Yeah.
so the car is a foot longer and a foot wider. And I think it looks pretty good. I mean, I'm not through with it, but
Sure.
I'm working on the rocker panels. That's the last big hurdle.
Yeah.
But we got gull wing doors on it, and to my knowledge, it's the only GT40 with gull wing doors on it. And again, I'm not through with it.
It's in progress.
It's in progress,
Yeah.
but they work.
I like it. And yes, I don't think I've ever seen or heard of anybody doing gull wing doors on a GT40.
And the reason
any
they
kind.
say no one has is the center of the car is not strong enough to support it.
Right.
But I got a cage in the car, and it's there's 2 bars goes down the center of it and down each side of the windshield. Maybe in another year or so.
Yeah. Well, I'll come back when you get ready to drive it. How about
Well,
that?
we can drive it today if you want.
Yeah.
I've driven it, but
Yeah.
but it's not real comfortable.
Well, no, I wouldn't think so, but
Anyway, that's what's been taking up my time since I got rid of the stock car.
yeah. So this project was started how long ago?
5 years,
5 years.
from the time I started with the engine.
And how much do you think it's going to take to finish it?
Time or money?
Well, we'll set the money aside. 'Cause we know
It'll
that
take me
always-
about a year.
Yeah.
It'll take about a year.
Yeah.
I've gotten on, again, like we spoke earlier before we got on camera.
Yeah.
I told you one of my biggest problems is it's hard to say no.
I understand.
Well, during the course of putting the engine together, a friend of mine named Jerry Canis in Rome, Georgia, told me, he said, hey, you know what'd be great on that engine as long as it is? I said, what? He said, one of the old Ford inline 4 barrels. I said, yeah, but that's kind of like hen's teeth. Where would you find one of those?
Right.
And he said, well, let me work on that. So a few weeks later, Jerry calls me and says, I've located a carburetor you can use. I said, oh yeah. So he sends me a carburetor. Have you ever seen a Ford inline?
No, not in person.
Okay. Well, today's your lucky day.
I love it.